The bruise on Nora Kennedy's cheek was already turning purple when she stepped onto the porch that morning in August 1872, and she touched it gingerly as she watched the stranger ride into Coloma, California, on a dusty brown mare. Her father had struck her harder than usual the night before, when she had dared to answer her brother's question about whether the chickens needed more feed. 3 words had earned her a backhand that sent her sprawling from her chair, and the memory of it made her stomach twist as she clutched the washing basket tighter against her hip. The stranger dismounted near the general store, and even from a distance, Nora could see he was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. He moved with an easy confidence that spoke of years in the saddle, and when he turned to tie his horse to the hitching post, she caught a glimpse of his profile. Strong jaw, straight nose, and something in his bearing that suggested he was not a man to be trifled with. She looked away quickly, knowing her father would beat her worse if he caught her staring at a man, any man, and hurried down the steps to hang the wet sheets on the line. The August sun beat down mercilessly as she worked, and sweat trickled down her back beneath her faded calico dress. At 21 years old, Nora had known nothing but her father's harsh rule and her mother's silent suffering. The Kennedy household was one where children were to be seen and not heard, where women existed only to serve, and where any deviation from Thomas Kennedy's expectations was met with swift and brutal punishment. Her mother had died 3 years ago, worn down by years of abuse and endless childbearing, and since then, Nora had shouldered the burden of caring for her 3 younger siblings, while enduring her father's increasingly violent temper. She was pinning the last sheet when she heard boots on the dirt behind her and turned to find the stranger standing there, hat in hand. Up close, he was even more striking than she had thought, with eyes the color of weathered bronze and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. He looked to be in his mid-20s, and there was something kind in his expression that made her heart skip unexpectedly. "Pardon me, miss," he said, his voice a low rumble that reminded her of distant thunder. "I am looking for work and wondered if your family might need an extra hand. I am good with horses and cattle, can mend fences and fix most anything that breaks." Nora opened her mouth to respond, then closed it quickly, her eyes darting toward the house. Her father was inside, and if he heard her speaking to a stranger without permission, she would pay for it dearly. But the man was waiting, watching her with those kind eyes, and something in her rebelled against her fear. "My father might," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He owns the ranch just west of town, but I cannot speak for him. You should ask him yourself." The stranger tilted his head slightly, and she saw him notice the bruise on her cheek. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he did not comment on it. "What do you think I should tell him?" he asked instead. "About my qualifications, I mean. What would most impress a rancher in these parts?" Nora stared at him in confusion. No one had ever asked her opinion on anything, let alone a grown man she had just met. I do not know," she stammered. "Sure you do," he said gently. "You live here. You know what needs doing on a ranch. What is your father most concerned about right now?" She hesitated, glancing again at the house, but curiosity and something deeper, a hunger she had not known she possessed, made her answer. "The fence along the northern pasture is falling apart," she said slowly. "And we lost 2 calves last month to coyotes. He has been angry about it ever since. If you told him you were good at building strong fences and had experience protecting livestock, he might listen." The stranger's face broke into a genuine smile, and it transformed him completely. "That is excellent advice. Thank you, Miss Kennedy," she said. "Nora Kennedy." "Adam Lawson," he replied, extending his hand. She looked at it for a long moment before carefully placing her own in his. His grip was warm and firm but gentle, and when he released her hand, she felt the ghost of his touch lingering on her skin. "You should go around to the front door," she said quickly. "And do not mention that you spoke to me first. He does not like it when I talk to strangers." Something dark flickered in Adam's eyes, but he simply nodded and replaced his hat. "I will remember that. Thank you, Miss Kennedy." He walked away, and Nora stood frozen by the clothesline, her heart hammering in her chest. She could not remember the last time someone had asked her opinion on anything. In her father's house, her voice was worthless, an irritation to be silenced. But this stranger, this Adam Lawson, had sought her thoughts as if they mattered, as if she were a person of value rather than just another piece of property. She heard the knock on the front door, heard her father's gruff voice answering, and then the low rumble of Adam's response. She could not make out the words, but the conversation went on for several minutes before she heard her father call her name in that tone that meant immediate obedience was required. Nora hurried inside, smoothing her skirts and keeping her eyes downcast. Her father stood in the parlor with Adam, and both men turned to look at her as she entered. Thomas Kennedy was a big man with a red face and hard eyes, and the smell of whiskey already clung to him even though it was barely noon. "This man says he is looking for work," her father said. "Make him some coffee while we talk business." "Yes, father," Nora murmured, retreating to the kitchen. Her hands shook slightly as she stoked the fire and set the pot to boil. Through the thin walls she could hear snatches of conversation, her father's suspicious questions and Adam's calm, measured responses. He mentioned the northern fence and the coyote problem, exactly as she had suggested, and she heard grudging approval enter her father's tone. When she brought the coffee out on a tray, her father was saying, "You can start tomorrow. There is a cot in the barn and meals come with the job, 50 cents a day, and you work from sunup to sundown." "That is acceptable," Adam said. He took the cup Nora offered him with a nod of thanks, and their eyes met briefly. She saw warmth there and something else she could not quite identify. "My daughter will bring your meals out," her father continued, "but do not waste time talking to her. She has enough to do without standing around gossiping with hired hands." "Understood," Adam said evenly, though Nora saw his jaw tighten again. That night at supper, Nora sat in her usual place at the table, silent and still as her father and brothers talked about the new hired man and the work that needed doing. Her younger brother Samuel, who was 15 and already showing signs of their father's cruel nature, said something about the fence posts being rotten, and Nora forgot herself. "The posts on the eastern side are still good," she said. "It is only the western section that needs replacing." The silence that fell over the table was immediate and terrible. Her father's face went from red to nearly purple, and Nora realized her mistake too late. She had spoken without being asked, had offered an opinion at the table, and she knew what was coming. "Get up," her father said in a low, dangerous voice. "Father, I am sorry. I did not mean get up." Nora rose on shaking legs, and her father's hand shot out, gripping her arm hard enough to bruise. He dragged her toward the kitchen, and she heard her younger sister Margaret begin to cry. Thomas Kennedy did not care. He shoved Nora against the wall and struck her across the face, once, twice, 3 times. Stars exploded behind her eyes and she tasted blood. "You do not speak at my table," he snarled. "You do not offer opinions. You are a woman and you will keep your mouth shut unless I tell you otherwise. You understand?" "Yes, father," she whispered through split lips. He hit her again, his fist connecting with her ribs this time, and she bit back a cry of pain. "Do you understand?" "Yes, father." He released her abruptly, and she slumped against the wall, fighting back tears. He returned to the table as if nothing had happened, and after a moment, Nora forced herself to straighten up and finish serving the meal. Her face throbbed, and she was fairly certain he had cracked one of her ribs, but she had learned long ago that showing weakness only made things worse. The next morning she could barely move. Her entire right side was a mass of bruises, and her face had swollen so badly that her right eye was nearly closed. But there was work to be done, including taking breakfast out to the new hired hand. So she forced herself out of bed and down to the kitchen to prepare biscuits and bacon. The walk to the barn seemed to take forever, and she moved stiffly, cradling the basket of food against her left side. Adam was already up, examining the tack hanging on the barn wall, and he turned at the sound of her footsteps. She saw shock and anger flash across his face when he saw her, and she looked away quickly. "Miss Kennedy," he said, his voice tight. "What happened?" "I brought your breakfast," she said, holding out the basket. He took it but did not look at the food. Instead, he stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. "Who did this to you? It does not matter. Here is your breakfast. I have to go." "Wait." His hand touched her arm, feather light, and she flinched instinctively. He pulled back immediately, holding his hands up. "I am sorry. I did not mean to startle you. But please, just wait a moment." She should have left. She knew that every second she spent talking to him was dangerous, but something in his voice made her stay, and she found herself looking up at him with her one good eye. "Did your father do this because you spoke to me yesterday?" he asked quietly. "No," she said, and it was technically true. "I spoke at supper without being asked. It was my own fault." "Your own fault," he repeated, and there was something dangerous in his tone now. "You think you deserve to be beaten for speaking. It is not your concern, Mr. Lawson. This is just how things are. It should not be." He set the basket down on a nearby barrel and crossed his arms. "How often does he hit you? Please stop asking me these questions. If he finds out I have been talking to you, it will be worse. Then we will make sure he does not find out." Adam's expression softened. "I am sorry. I do not mean to cause you trouble, but I need you to know something, Miss Kennedy. What your father does is not right. You should be able to speak your mind without fear." Nora felt tears prick her eyes, and she blinked them back fiercely. "That is a nice thought, but it is not reality, not for me. It could be." She shook her head and turned to leave, but his next words stopped her. "What do you think I should work on first today? The fence or checking the herd?" She turned back slowly, confused. "What? I want your opinion," he said simply. "You know this ranch better than I do. What makes the most sense?" It was the same question from yesterday, asked in a different way, and Nora felt that same strange hunger rise up in her. "The fence," she said after a moment. "The herd is grazing in the southern pasture right now, so they are safe enough. But if the fence is not fixed soon and they wander north, we could lose more." "Good thinking," Adam said with that transformative smile. "I will start on the fence then. Do you know which posts are still good and which need replacing?" And just like that, he had her talking. She found herself explaining about the fence, about which sections her father had built 10 years ago and which dated back to the previous owner, about where the wood was likely to be rotten and where it should still be sound. Adam listened attentively, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her answers. And for a few precious minutes, Nora forgot about her bruises and her fear and felt like a real person. When she finally left, her heart was lighter than it had been in years, and she caught herself humming as she walked back to the house. Then reality crashed back down, and she forced herself to stop, to remember her place, to tuck away the dangerous feelings this stranger had awakened in her. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. Nora would bring Adam his meals, and he would ask her opinion on something related to the ranch work. What did she think about the best place to graze the cattle? Which mare would be best suited to breed with the new stallion? Was the creek running low enough that they should start rationing water? Each question was a gift, an acknowledgement that she had a mind and thoughts worth hearing. And Nora found herself looking forward to those brief conversations with an intensity that frightened her. Adam, for his part, seemed to go out of his way to seek her input. He would save up questions throughout the day, and when she appeared with his food, he would present them with genuine curiosity. She began to realize that he was not just being polite. He actually valued her perspective and often implemented her suggestions. When she told him the cattle preferred the grazing near the oak grove, he moved them there and reported that they seemed more content. When she mentioned that the barn door stuck because the bottom hinge was bent, he fixed it that very afternoon. Her father noticed that Adam was doing good work, but he never connected it to Nora's input. In Thomas Kennedy's mind, his daughter was incapable of useful thought, so it never occurred to him that she might be helping. Nora was grateful for his blindness, even as she knew she was playing a dangerous game. 2 weeks after Adam's arrival, Nora's father hit her again. She had been too slow bringing his dinner, and he had backhanded her across the kitchen, splitting her lip open once more. She had managed to keep the tears at bay until she reached her small bedroom, and there she had wept into her pillow, feeling the weight of her trapped existence crushing down on her. The next morning, Adam took one look at her face and said, "Come with me." "What?" "I cannot. Your father thinks I am checking the fence line. It will take me most of the morning to reach it. Come with me. He will be angry if he finds out." "He will not find out. Please, Nora." It was the first time he had used her given name, and something in the way he said it made her decision for her. She nodded, and he helped her up onto his horse before mounting behind her. His arms came around her to hold the reins, and she was intensely aware of his warmth at her back, solid and safe. They rode in silence for a while, following the fence line north toward the mountains. The morning was beautiful, with the sun gilding the golden California hills, and a slight breeze taking the edge off the heat. Nora could not remember the last time she had been out of sight of the house, the last time she had felt this sense of freedom, and she found herself relaxing against Adam's chest. "How long has your father been hitting you?" he asked eventually. "Always," she said. "My mother too, before she died." "It is just the way he is. And your brothers and sister, does he hit them?" "Sometimes, but not as much as me. I think he resents me for being the oldest and not being a son." Adam was quiet for a long moment. "My father never raised a hand to my mother or my sisters," he said finally. "He believed that real strength was in protecting those weaker than yourself, not in hurting them." "Your father sounds like a good man." "He was. He died 5 years ago, and I miss him every day." They reached the fence and dismounted. Adam began examining the posts while Nora sat on a nearby boulder and watched. After a few minutes, he said, "What do you want, Nora? If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?" "That is a foolish question." "Humor me." She considered it, this impossible question. "I want to be free," she said finally. "I want to live somewhere where I can speak without fear. I want to have my own thoughts and my own life. I want to matter. You do matter. Not in my father's house." Adam drove a post into the ground with more force than necessary. "Then leave." "Where would I go? I have no money, no skills except housework and farming. No one would hire me, and even if they did, my father would come after me. He would drag me back and beat me within an inch of my life." "Not if someone protected you." Nora looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" He straightened up and met her eyes. "I am saying that I would protect you. If you wanted to leave, I would help you. You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you are smart and brave and kind. I know you deserve better than what you have. And I know that in the 2 weeks I have been here, I have come to care about you more than I probably should." Nora's breath caught in her throat. "Adam, you do not have to say anything," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know that you have options. You do not have to stay in that house and let him hurt you. But where would we go? We." His eyes brightened with hope. She had said it without thinking, and now she realized what she had revealed. "I mean, I could not ask you to give up your job and your life for me. You are not asking. I am offering." He came closer, and she could see the intensity in his bronze-colored eyes. "Nora, I have been working ranch jobs since I was 15 years old. I can find work anywhere. What I cannot do is stand by and watch you be hurt anymore, so I am asking you right now. Do you want to leave with me?" It was insane. It was impossible. She had known this man for 2 weeks, and he was asking her to run away with him, to trust him with her life and her future. Every rational thought in her head told her to say no, to play it safe, to endure as she had always endured. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, yes. Adam's face split into that incredible smile, and he took her hands in his. "We will need to plan it carefully. Your father cannot suspect anything. He does not pay much attention to me beyond finding fault," Nora said, her mind already racing. "If we left at night, too dangerous on the roads after dark, and he would discover you missing by morning and come after us." "What if we left on Sunday?" Nora suggested. "He goes into town on Sunday afternoons to drink at the saloon. He is usually gone for 3 or 4 hours. That could work. We could get a good head start before he realized you were gone." They spent the rest of the morning planning, and Nora felt more alive than she had in her entire life. They decided to leave in 2 weeks, which would give them time to prepare without arousing suspicion. Adam would quietly gather supplies and hide them, and Nora would pack a small bag of her belongings. They would head north toward Sacramento, where Adam had contacts who could help them find work and a place to live. "What about your siblings?" Adam asked as they rode back toward the ranch. "Will you be able to leave them?" Nora's heart ached at the thought. "Margaret is only 13 and Samuel is 15. Michael is 12. They are still children. We could take them with us, all of them. That would be much harder and more dangerous, but possible." She leaned back against him, feeling his steadiness. "Let me think about it. Margaret especially. I hate to leave her there." Over the next 2 weeks, Nora's world transformed. Outwardly, nothing changed. She still did her chores, still endured her father's rages, still lived in fear. But inwardly, she had hope for the first time in her life. She and Adam stole moments together whenever they could, always careful to avoid suspicion. He continued to ask her opinion on everything, and their conversations grew longer and deeper. She learned that he had grown up in Texas, that he loved reading but rarely had access to books, that he had always wanted to see the ocean. She told him about her mother, about the gentleness that had been beaten out of her over the years. She told him about her dreams of learning to read properly, about wanting to see the cities she had only heard about wishing she could wear a dress that was not faded and patched. "When we get to Sacramento, we will buy you a new dress," Adam promised. "Any color you want." "Blue," she said immediately. "A blue dress with white lace at the collar. Blue it is." 3 days before they were set to leave, Nora's father struck her again at the dinner table. This time it was because she had accidentally given him coffee instead of water, a simple mistake born of exhaustion. He hit her so hard that she fell from her chair, and when she tried to get up, he kicked her in the stomach. She lay gasping on the floor while her siblings watched in terrified silence, and something inside her hardened to steel. She was done. She was absolutely done. That night, she crept down to the barn where Adam was sleeping. He woke instantly at her whisper and sat up, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. "What is wrong? I want to leave now," she said urgently. "Not on Sunday, now." He saw the new bruises, the way she was hunched over protecting her stomach, and his jaw clenched. "Get your things. We leave in an hour. What about Margaret? Bring her if she wants to come, but we need to move fast." Nora hurried back to the house, her heart pounding. She woke Margaret, who was confused and frightened until Nora explained quickly what was happening. Margaret's eyes went wide. "You are running away." "I am leaving," Nora corrected. "And you can come with me if you want, but you have to decide right now." Margaret looked at her sister's battered face, and Nora saw the moment she made her decision. "I am coming." They gathered what little they had, moving silently through the dark house. Nora's hands shook as she took her mother's Bible from the shelf, the only thing of value she owned. They slipped out the back door just as Adam appeared with 2 horses. "I borrowed your father's mare," he said. "We can leave her at the livery in Auburn." He helped both women mount, and then they were riding through the darkness, away from the ranch, away from their prison. Nora kept expecting to hear her father's roar behind them, kept waiting for rough hands to drag her back, but nothing happened. They rode north through the night, and when the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Nora felt tears streaming down her face. "Are you all right?" Adam asked, riding close beside her. "I am free," she whispered. "For the first time in my life, I am free." They reached Auburn by mid-morning and returned the borrowed horse as planned. Adam used some of his saved wages to purchase supplies and pay for passage on a stagecoach heading to Sacramento. Margaret fell asleep almost immediately once they were settled in the coach, exhausted from the emotional and physical ordeal, but Nora could not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the landscape roll by, acutely aware of Adam's presence beside her. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. "I am thinking about what you said that first day," she replied. "About asking my opinion. No one ever did that before. It made me feel like I existed. You do exist. You are brilliant and strong, and I am continually amazed by you." She turned to look at him, really look at him, and saw the honesty in his face. "Why did you do it? Why did you ask me those questions?" "Because I saw you that first morning, and I saw the bruise on your face, and I saw the way you made yourself small, like you were trying to disappear. And I thought, here is a person who has been told her whole life that she does not matter, but I could see that you did, so I wanted you to know it too. You barely knew me. I knew enough." He hesitated, then took her hand. "Nora, I want you to understand something. I am not rescuing you. You rescued yourself by choosing to leave. I am just lucky enough to be along for the journey." "That is a nice way of putting it, but we both know the truth. I could not have done this without you. Maybe. But you would have found a way eventually. You are too strong to have stayed there forever." They reached Sacramento 3 days later, and Adam was true to his word. He found them lodging in a respectable boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Henderson, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who asked no uncomfortable questions. Adam took a room on the first floor, while Nora and Margaret shared a small but clean room on the second. The first week was an adjustment. Nora had to learn to navigate a city, something she had never done before. Adam found work at a stable, and Nora took in sewing to help pay their way. Margaret, showing a resilience that impressed her sister, got a job helping Mrs. Henderson with the cooking and housework. But more than the physical adjustments, Nora had to learn to live without fear. She flinched at loud noises, expected violence for the smallest mistakes, and could not shake the feeling that her father would appear at any moment to drag her home. Adam was patient with her, never pushing, always asking her opinion on things large and small until it became second nature for her to share her thoughts. "What do you think we should have for supper?" he would ask. Where do you want to walk this evening? What color thread should I buy for your sewing? Every question was a gift, a reminder that her voice mattered. 2 months after their arrival in Sacramento, Adam asked the most important question of all. They were walking along the riverbank, the autumn sun warm on their faces. Margaret was back at the boarding house, giving them some time alone. Adam had been quieter than usual all afternoon, and Nora kept glancing at him, wondering what was on his mind. Finally, he stopped walking and turned to face her. I have something to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me. All right, Nora said, her heart beginning to race. Do you ever regret leaving? Do you wish you had stayed where things were familiar, even if they were hard? No, she said firmly. Never, not for a single moment. Good, because I have another question, and it is an important one. He took both her hands in his. Nora Kennedy, over these past 3 months, I have come to love you more than I ever thought possible. You are the strongest, smartest, most incredible woman I have ever known. So I am asking you, what do you think about marrying me? Even in his proposal, he was asking her opinion, and Nora felt a laugh bubble up in her throat even as tears filled her eyes. I think, she said slowly, that it is the best idea you have ever had. His face lit up with joy, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I promise I will spend every day of my life making sure you know how valued you are. I promise I will always ask what you think, always want to hear your voice. I promise, Adam, she interrupted gently. I know. I trust you. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Nora felt the last pieces of her broken heart begin to mend. They were married a week later in a simple ceremony at the small church on 4th Street. Margaret stood as Nora's witness, and a fellow stable worker stood for Adam. Nora wore the blue dress Adam had promised her, with white lace at the collar, and she had never felt more beautiful. When the preacher asked if she took Adam to be her lawfully wedded husband, she said, I do, in a clear, strong voice that echoed through the church. That night, in the small house Adam had rented for them on the edge of town, he asked her one more question. What do you want our life to look like? Nora considered it seriously, this question that encompassed everything. I want a home full of laughter, she said finally. I want children who grow up knowing they are loved and valued. I want to continue learning and growing. I want to help other women who are trapped like I was. And I want to spend every day with you, building something beautiful together. That sounds perfect, Adam said, pulling her close. We will make it happen, together. And they did. Over the following years, Nora and Adam built the life she had dreamed of. Their first child, a son they named Thomas after Nora's father in a gesture of forgiveness she had not known she was capable of, was born in the spring of 1874. He had Adam's bronze eyes and Nora's dark hair, and from the moment he drew breath, he was surrounded by love. Margaret continued to live with them until she turned 18, at which point she married a kind young carpenter named James who worked with Adam on various projects around town. Nora had worried about her sister's ability to trust after their childhood, but James was patient and gentle, and Margaret bloomed under his care. Nora never saw or heard from her father again. She sent a letter to her brothers once, letting them know where she was in case they ever needed help, but received no reply. She made peace with it, understanding that some wounds ran too deep to heal. Instead, she focused her energy on creating a different kind of family, one built on respect and love rather than fear and violence. Adam continued to ask her opinion on everything, and it never stopped making her smile. They made decisions together, from the smallest daily choices to the biggest life changes. When Adam was offered a chance to become a partner in the stable, he asked Nora what she thought. When they discussed having more children, he wanted to know her feelings. When they decided to buy a small ranch outside of town, he insisted that she choose the property. Their second child, a daughter named Grace, was born in 1876. She was followed by another son, Henry, in 1878, and finally a second daughter, Mary, in 1880. Each child was raised to believe that their thoughts and opinions mattered, regardless of their gender. Nora taught her daughters to be strong and independent, and she taught her sons to be respectful and kind. Adam taught all of them about horses and ranching, and more importantly, he taught them by example what a good marriage looked like. In 1881, Nora started a small organization to help women escape abusive situations. She worked with local churches and the sheriff's office to provide safe houses and resources, using her own experience to guide others toward freedom. It was challenging work, both emotionally and practically, but deeply fulfilling. Adam supported her completely, often using his contacts in the community to help find jobs and housing for the women she aided. One evening in the fall of 1885, Nora and Adam sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sun set over the hills. Their children were inside, the older ones helping the younger with their homework, their voices drifting through the open windows. It was a peaceful scene, so far removed from the violence and fear of Nora's childhood that it sometimes felt like a dream. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, as he had asked her thousands of times over the years. Nora smiled and took his hand. "I am thinking about that first day when you asked for my opinion about your work. Do you remember?" "Of course I remember. It was the day I started falling in love with you. I did not realize it at the time, but you were not just asking me a question. You were offering me a different life. You were showing me that I had value." "You always had value," Adam said. "I just helped you see it. You did more than that. You gave me freedom. You gave me a voice. You gave me a reason to believe in love." He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "And you gave me everything I ever wanted. A home, a family, a partner who challenges me and inspires me every single day." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Nora said, "Adam, what do you think about expanding the Safe House program? I have been getting requests from women in other towns." And there it was again, that question that had become so natural between them, the asking and valuing of each other's thoughts. They talked long into the evening about the possibilities, about the challenges and the potential, making plans and dreaming together as they always did. In the years that followed, their life continued to be rich and full. Thomas grew into a thoughtful young man who took over much of the ranch work, allowing Adam more time to help Nora with her advocacy work. Grace showed a talent for teaching and opened a small school for children whose parents could not afford formal education. Henry followed his father into the horse business, and young Mary declared her intention to become a doctor, an ambitious goal for a young woman in the 1890s, but one her parents supported wholeheartedly. Margaret and her husband James had 4 children of their own, and the extended family gathered regularly for meals and celebrations. The children grew up as close as siblings, and Margaret often told Nora that watching her sister's happy family had healed something deep inside her. One Sunday afternoon in the spring of 1895, nearly 23 years after Nora had fled her father's house, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Thomas was getting married to a kind young woman named Sarah, and the wedding would take place the following week. The house was full of laughter and noise, and Nora moved through it with a sense of deep contentment. She found Adam in the barn, checking on a mare that was close to foaling. He looked up as she approached, and even after all these years, her heart still skipped when he smiled at her. "There is my beautiful wife," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I was just thinking about you. Good thoughts, I hope. Always. He kissed her forehead. I was remembering that day we rode to check the fence and you told me what you wanted. Do you remember what you said? I said I wanted to be free. I wanted to speak without fear. I wanted my own thoughts and my own life. I wanted to matter. And do you have those things? Nora looked out at the ranch, at the house where her children and grandchildren were gathered, at the life she and Adam had built together. I have everything, she said softly. And it all started because you asked me a question, because you wanted to know what I thought. Best decision I ever made, Adam said. Well, that and asking you to marry me. What do you think our life would have been like if we had never met? Nora asked. Adam was quiet for a moment. I think I would have spent my whole life looking for you without knowing what I was searching for. And I think you would have survived, because you are strong enough to survive anything, but I hope you would have found a way to be happy. I am glad I found you instead. Me too. They stood together in the barn, holding each other as they had done countless times over the years, and Nora felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. The girl who had been beaten for speaking at the table had become a woman whose voice helped shape her community. The girl who had believed she did not matter had become a woman who mattered deeply to many people. And the girl who had never known real love had become a woman surrounded by it. That evening, after the family had gone home and the house was quiet, Nora and Adam sat together on the porch as the stars came out. Adam took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm in a gesture that had become habit over the years. I have a question for you, he said. Just one. Nora teased. Well, for now, what do you think about the next 20 years? What do you want to accomplish? It was such a perfect question, looking forward rather than back, assuming they would continue to grow and build together. Nora thought about it carefully. I want to see Mary finish medical school. I want to watch our grandchildren grow up. I want to expand the Safe House program to reach more women. I want to grow old with you, still talking and planning and dreaming. And I want to keep falling more in love with you every single day. I think that is a perfect plan, Adam said. And I want all those things too, but mostly I just want to keep asking you questions and hearing your answers. That is still my favorite thing. Ask me something now, Nora said. All right. He turned to face her, his bronze eyes warm in the lamplight. Nora Lawson, what do you think about spending the rest of our lives exactly like this, loving each other and building something beautiful? I think, Nora said, leaning in to kiss him, that there is nothing in this world I want more. And in the end, that was exactly what they did. They spent their remaining years together, continuing to ask each other's opinions, continuing to value each other's thoughts, continuing to build a life based on mutual respect and deep, abiding love. When Adam passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1910, at the age of 63, Nora held his hand and thanked him for giving her a voice when she had none. And when she joined him 5 years later, surrounded by children and grandchildren who had learned from her example, her last words were about him, about the cowboy who had seen value in a beaten-down girl and asked her opinion on everything, forever changing the course of her life and proving that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply believing someone matters.